Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Soul Centered CEO show. So excited to have you with us. And I'm so excited to have my sweet friend, Dan Mangena. Is that right? Yay! Okay, I did it. Welcome, Dan. It's such a pleasure to have you. I'm so excited to be
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much
It's
for
such
having
a
me.
pleasure. We've talked about this for a while, and it's just so lovely to finally make it happen. So for those of you that are new to this soul-centered CEO concept, it's really an evolution, right, of an event that we did a couple of weeks ago called The Gathering. And I just loved the conversations so much that I wanted just to continue this opportunity to connect with more incredible humans doing extraordinary things in the world, and really what I call a soul-centered CEO, which is someone that really embodies the expression of the combination of like business mastery with heart and soul-centered leadership. So I'm so excited for all of you to be with us today, and especially to have you, Dan, because I really feel like you are that embodiment. You're the expression of really these really grounded, been able to create something really beautiful for yourself and your life with your business and the work that you're doing in the world. And I'm just really excited to have you share some of that story with us today. You know, you've written several books, you're a best-selling author, an entrepreneur, philanthropist, international speaker. You've facilitated events and retreats and workshops around the world, and we're just really happy and honored to have you with us today. So welcome to the Soul Centered CEO show.
Thank you. And I just want to have a big shout out to Chantal Adams for making the connection in the first place. It's just that couple of days crossover of you being down in Mexico in the same town, and we were able to make the catch up happen. So thanks, Chantal.
1 hour connection. It was so great. Yeah. So much help. So it is so fun to me, I think, how we are all part of this fun little web, right, of magic, right? So it's like you're super close to Chantal and I am, and it was like, oh, well, you guys have to meet. You're in the same town. So it's been really fun to see how those connections are made too. So exactly. I love it. I love meeting fabulous people all over the world. So it's wonderful. So Dan, you know, the vision of the Soul Centered CEO is really to help inspire and to shed light and hope, really, of what's possible to create in our lives. And to me, becoming a soul-centered CEO is really about how we can lead from a different place. It's not from our mind, it's not from our ego. It's really this like divine alignment and this almost like the fullest expression of our soul and what we're supposed to be doing in the world. And with that, having a heart for service. So it's really about creating business models that serve and make more and serve more so we can give more. That's really the ultimate mission of what I'm creating with this movement is how do we create businesses that really light us up from the inside out and allow us to make expansion and more money and abundance available so we can do more good work in the world. So I know that you've created something really beautiful with your business and your life. And I also know it hasn't always been easy, right? It always, there's always a story behind the magic, right? So I would love for you to take a minute and maybe share a little bit about your story, like how you got to where you are, some of the challenges that you had to overcome, and maybe a little bit more about what you're creating now and how others might be inspired by that, because I know that wherever we are on the journey, there's always things to overcome before we get to the good stuff, right? So if you would take a minute and just share with us a little bit about where you've been and what you had to overcome to get where you are today, that would be lovely.
Sure thing. Well, thanks again for the opportunity to speak with beautiful people out there. Hey, I'm Daniel Mangena. Some people call me Donut. That's a couple of my sisters do that. D, Dan, Dizzle. But essentially, my journey was an interesting one because I actually made my first million when I was 20 years old. So I promptly lost everything within, I think, a year and a half. I'm battered. I was so full of beans that I went off, and within a couple of years, I stacked another load of money, and then promptly lost all of that again for completely different reasons. After that time, I was completely battered. I was like, no, there was nothing left. I actually got to the point where I was so broken down from what seemed at the time to be the most monumental failure, shame, just hopelessness, that I actually came to the point where the only reason why I didn't commit suicide was I didn't want to fail at something else. I got to the point where I was like, if this doesn't pull off, then everyone's going to think I'm so pathetic, and that's going to be even worse. So I accidentally overanalyzed myself out of the suicide process. But in that overanalysis, which led to a very thankful paralysis, I came to understand that the thing that I was running away from, every single aspect of it, I was at the center of it. The things that the tasks that I'd set for myself, successfully finding a way to commit suicide, there was only one way that I could do that. And that's if I, myself, successfully step up to the plate. So I had to depend on me. But this wasn't like an egoic, depend on me. It was more an understanding of my central role. And that formed the basis of my beyond intention paradigm. And the piece that came through was, I'm the common denominator in every single one of my experiences. I spent the next decade rebuilding my life from that place, but I wasn't really interested in being abundant for most of that. I just kind of wanted to have a quiet life and be at peace. I then went off and built another successful business, but very low key. I did consulting and project management. I got that up to a 7-figure business. But over that journey, what happened is that I ended up going back to the roots of where I'd started, because I built the success that I had initially through visualization, positive thinking, goal setting, intention setting, and developing a model around the books that I read at the time. I may look sprightly, but I actually started my journey in personal development about 20 years ago. I was about 16 or 17 years old when I started my journey. And I looked at the failures, quote unquote failures, and I looked at what had worked. And that journey from that original model to what now is beyond intention, I was really just sort of going through what worked and what didn't work, looking at what had gone wrong and seeing where I could improve and tweak, and taking in more information, reading more. I've read a book a week for the past 6 years. Before then, there was a point when I was reading at least 1 or 2 books a week. I was reading, studying, really going back in. So hundreds and hundreds of books, hundreds of hours of study, mentorship. I've spent over $500,000 on my personal development in the last 6 years alone. Teachers from all over the world and so on and so forth. And I ended up being guided on a journey back to a place of the heart, which is why this work that you're doing is so important to me, because understanding that the heart is as a gateway to the infinite space of who we truly are was a very, very powerful realization for me. And I don't mean that in a woo-woo sort of fluffy, huffy way. I mean that in a real way. Our heart, which is the seat of our feelings, is the gateway to the infinite experiences that we can connect to if we create alignment with them. And that journey led me deeper into meditation and deeper back into spirituality, which I'd started to shun a little bit for a few years. And over that time, what ended up happening was I found myself being called to share beyond intention with others, because I wasn't using it as a thing that I wanted to coach with or teach with. I had no intention of doing that. It was a model I used for myself, my loved ones, and those around me. But the call to actually share it in a more formalized way became more and more pronounced. It became something that kept coming up. It kept coming up until I got to the point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. And through a series of circumstances, I ended up coming to a point where I basically walked away from my business. It was funny because the universe sort of started to take it away from me before I walked away from it anyway. But I walked with my business and made the choice to be just a teacher. And I had no intention of making any money from it. I was living off my savings, flying myself around the world, doing free workshops, teaching, and I started my podcast and I wrote books and so on and so forth. But then the point came when I recognized that money is a medium of choice. It's just an energy that allows us to
have more freedom of choice. In terms of the reality that we live in, the medium of exchange that has the most flexibility is money. So if you want more choice, if you want more freedom, if you want more impact, then money is the way to do that. But as money is just an energy, its power or its curse really comes down to the energy that it's imbued with, that it's seeded with. So when we are coming through the soul, through the heart, with expansive intentions of giving more life to others, then it can be a true blessing. And the more of it you get, the better, because the more you can do with it, versus it being, seeded with, I've got to keep, being seeded with contraction, being seeded with greed. When it's seeded with the heart, when it's seeded with love, it's a very, very powerful tool that God, the universe source, can use to impact more lives, because there is a collective agreement that states that this is a medium of exchange that is the most flexible for people to use.
Yeah, I love that so much. It's as if the intention behind it is what makes it out into the world in the highest and best way, right? So you're right. It can be greed. It can be more for me, or it can be, wow, I really want to step into this next level of abundance, so that way I can not only care for myself and, like you said, have the freedom to use my time in whatever way that I want, but also so that we could collectively do more, right? Help more people with that abundance that we have available to us. So mm-hmm. I love the story. I love how you overcame and allowed yourself to continue on, right? Because that was a choice point. It was an exit. It could have been an exit point for you, and it was like, nope, I'm not done yet. I'm going to keep going. And just think about the number of people that now you have impacted and blessed over this last series of years, because you stayed in and kept fighting. Yeah.
And the funniest thing was that that wasn't actually the choice wasn't, okay, I'm going to live now. I actually just got distracted. I actually got distracted. So it was a happy accident, and one that I reflect on with laughter now. I can laugh about it now. For many years, it wasn't really much laughter going on about it, but now I can.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's important that you were able to reflect back and take the pieces that worked, right? Like, okay, this was a benefit. I'm going to take this. And then you were able to mold and craft that into something that you can now teach others how to do that as well. So, I think it's always fascinating how, and this is something that Chantal and I, we talked about when I interviewed her for this experience. We a lot of times are able, if we allow ourselves, to take the messiness, the suffering or the sadness that we've experienced, and create some kind of message that can essentially be incredibly powerful and transformative for other people. Because there may be people listening right here that are exactly where you were, right? Or have in that place, have lost everything, and you can overcome that, and then you can use that messiness of our life to be a blessing. And I think that it sounds exactly like that's what you've done, is you've taken all of that, those highs and lows, and you've crafted something that can now serve others to help them wherever they are on their journey. So I think that's wonderful. I love that.
The funny thing is that the point where I made the decision to leave my old business, which now I've opened back up again, which is hilarious. But when I closed the consulting company down, I'd reached a point where, this is the thing, over the years, because between what I call ground zero and me coming to the point where I made that choice, I think we're talking 9 years. And over that 9-year period, I had been positive. I'd been looking at aspects of my journey and been grateful for them. I'd been grateful for the fact that I'd developed humility, because I was an arrogant toad, and that's what was the cause of a lot of my problems before. I'd learned humility. I'd learned to be a better person. I definitely learned to be more grateful for my family. I had a complete life clear out a couple of times, because when you hit rock bottom, you will find out who your people are and who your people are not. And I had the opportunity to do that and to learn deeper levels of compassion for people that have been on different journeys. Just so many life lessons that I was grateful for, but there were aspects of it that I kind of had glossed over. But what happened in that moment, I was actually in the mountains of New Mexico, really early, very cold. And I had this vision. And the vision was that I finally understood the true meaning of gratitude. The true meaning of gratitude is accepting everything, including the ugliness. Because what had happened was, at that point that I'd reached that morning on the 13th of February, I remember the date, was that I was able to be grateful for everything, including the ugliness, because all of it brought me to that moment. In a universe of infinite possibilities, there's a million different roads I could have used to get to where I was, but it was that unique combination of experiences that allowed me to be where I was. So I was finally able not just to be grateful for the positives, but also for the things that I considered to be quote unquote negatives. I was finally able to embody all of it, and that's when my life changed.
Okay, so that's the key right there, right? It's interesting that you say that, because I don't know if you can see this. I have this tattoo on my arm. Can you see that? It's it says amor fati, which is a Latin phrase that basically is just what you just said. It's lover of one's fate, and it's
Love it.
the highs, the lows. It's all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And trusting that had anything been different, you wouldn't have ended up exactly where you needed to be, which it feels very similar to that right there.
Mm-hmm.
So, wow, I think that right there is just such a blessing for those that are listening to think about, right? Like, wherever you are, whatever you've been through, knowing and believing that it was a blessing to get you to where you are right now, and believing in that, I think is such a it's such a opportunity for peace, I think, too, right? Instead of regrets and going back and beating yourself up over decisions and choices, when just realizing that whatever happened, it happened because you needed to be right here, right now. So I think that's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, it's just at this level of consciousness, and whether you choose to accept it or not, it's been scientifically demonstrated that we operate on more than one level of consciousness. Some people call that, the soul level and other levels, and some will say just the unconscious, but the unconscious doesn't have a physical seat in our body. So it's something outside of the physical. So we're really talking about spirit, right? When we even start to look at the plethora of evidence around people who have visceral experiences of other lifetimes and so on too, there is more than this thing that we call our physical reality. But our conscious mind can only grasp a section of that. So there's a lot more happening. There's a lot more of the playing field. And we can only see one part of the playing field from this level of consciousness. And I feel that the trust and surrender piece is recognizing that so long as we are aligned with that as the outcome, because I don't believe that God is a tyrant. So long as we're aligned with that outcome, everything can be for our good, even the stuff that looks crap. And at this level, we might not see how it's for our good, but it's actually trusting that allows it to be, because reality responds to our expectation about what's going to happen. So when I can look at a mess and understand that there's an advantage to it because I've decided here and now within myself that that's the case, even if I don't quite see it, the advantage is there. It's just outside of my scope of awareness. But it's holding that surrendered trust in it that allows it to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so those two keywords, trust and surrender. Oh my gosh, right? Like, and especially right now where we are in the world, it's those two words I think are incredibly important and so powerful if we're able to truly trust and honestly surrender and not attach to the outcome. I think that's incredibly powerful. And there's a lot, the conversations that I've been having a lot with clients right now is about that, like trusting exactly where you need to be right now. Trust the process. Don't be attached to the outcome. Allow yourself to release and accept and surrender what's happening and where you are, and know that what's on the other side is going to be amazing, right? That's what's happening. So I love that. Do you have any specific advice or a tool or something that you would like to share with those that are listening that could help them where they are on their journey to either expand their level of consciousness or that would help kind of step them into the next level for them, depending on where their goals and dreams are. Do you have anything specific that you might want to share, a tool or tip?
Sure. What comes forward is my concept of micro shifting. Micro shifting is something that's been coming back time and time again as being a thing that really has massive impact for people that apply it. Micro shifting is taking a consistent series of baby steps in the direction of a consciously chosen outcome. That's how I define a micro shift. So consistency is key, series, so connectivity of baby steps. So we're looking at the minimum deliverable. What's something that I know I can do now that takes me in the direction of my goal? I want to create a business, for example, that's profitable and serves. Okay, well, what is one step that you can make now in the direction of that? Not how can you tackle the whole thing. Maybe it's just brainstorming on what my gifts are. Maybe it's just getting my LLC registered. Maybe it's just, setting up a separate email account for it. Maybe it's just brainstorming and having clarity on how I want to serve people. Just one step. But if you're consistently doing that, step at a time, day at a time, you will get somewhere. And what tends to happen, the cumulative energy that comes from that momentum has a compound effect that means that those micro shifts very quickly turn into quantum leaps. I find this when I'm working with people on creating abundance. I find this when I'm having people dealing with everything from trauma to midlife crises. Taking it one micro shift at a time makes a difference because we don't have the same resistance levels. We don't have the same energetic and emotional blocks and hindrances. We don't have the same stickiness with strategy because it's just asking yourself at a deep level, what can I do today to take me one step closer? The subconscious law of momentum says that as long as I continue on a path, I'm going to get to where that path leads. So when we are deliberate through intention of setting the end point for the momentum and take steps in the direction of that momentum, so asking ourselves questions against the backdrop of that ultimate intention, and then just making that baby step, you will get there.
I love it. And I also feel like being surrounded and supported by a community and by people that can help hold, doing our own work, taking our inspired action, doing consistency, right, in path, and then being surrounded by people that love and support you, that can help hold that vision with you, I think is also really beautiful.
Definitely. That's the environment that we're existing in, the support that we have. I personally, I've already done 6 figures this year on personal development and coaching and support. Mm-hmm. That's this year alone. Before this year, I'd done, God knows, about 500,000 plus. I still make sure that I carefully curate the people, places and things in my environment. And that sometimes is part of the micro shift. Does this person, place or thing, does this conversation, does this book, does this Netflix show, does this podcast, does it take me towards what I intend or away from it? Because we're always making a choice in direction. We're either moving towards it or moving away from it. And by consistently making the choice to move towards it, that contributes. And that means, am I being supported? Do I need a coach? Do I need to work with a healer who's going to take me through something? Do I need to get the right support? Do I need to change the communities that I'm surrounding myself with? Do I need to bathe in the energy of something more uplifting and inspiring in order to take me closer to where I want to go? All of these are questions that it's imperative to consistently ask ourselves if we want to get somewhere.
Yeah, this soul-centered CEO movement, it's surrounding ourselves with people that are like-minded, that have big visions, but also big hearts, right? And that have a heart for service. So I'm so excited for those of you that are listening, that if you feel called to me is what is part of requirements of getting to the next level, whatever that looks like for you in your life. We're excited to have you on the journey, and hopefully you'll continue to be with us each week as we bring in different heart and soul-centered leaders that I feel, again, embody the vision and the mission and the teachings of what, to me, a soul-centered CEO looks like. So, Dan, I'm so excited for the journey that you're on and for what magic you're creating in the world. I just honor all of the the parts and pieces of your story that you're willing to share in order to inspire and help others expand into their next level. And if you guys want to check out some of the work that Dan has done, you can find him at dreamwithdan.com. You can follow him on all the socials at CEO. Is that right?
Yep, Dreamer CEO, that's me.
Is that right? Okay, got it. Okay, wonderful. So thank you again so much for being with us today. Hopefully you still got the essence of the message, and you can feel free to tune in next Thursday as we continue these beautiful conversations. So thank you so much, Dan. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay.
Kisses.